Thanks.
Power on. Bluetooth pairing. Bluetooth connected.
Hail this land of glory, we the Ambazonia, nation loyalty. Praise to our Savior who granted us the freedom, and letters to the hero who fought along the diablo. Glory to glory, we rise and never to fall. Here in the nations, flowing rivers and holy. Glory, glory, glory to the Father for making you a nation and joy forevermore. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall reflect the needs in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of His nation. Ambazonia, land of freedom, you shall reflect the needs in our need, and your children shall be like the stars above. The Most High God being the watchman of His nation.
Wow, 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 wow. Bamenda Brigade Mezam. Oh, yeah. This generation, a wonderful generation. The generation that have a mission to accomplish. We don't need anybody's approval. This is the generation that have defied all odds. Thank you, Bamenda Brigade. Thank you so much. We are so proud of you. Kudos. Una cafe the day up. 500 armor car salute for una. Shake no day. Una place the day. All these terrorists and criminals must leave our land. Thank una so much, Bamenda Brigade. This is Mami Wally, the OGC. Thank una so much. Together we stand. Shake no day. We must push those terrorists out of our territory. All those criminals, infiltrators, enablers, and terrorists must leave our territory by fire, by force. Good job, kudos. We'll be so proud of una. Together we stand. Anything we una want that will dey down for supply. Shake no day. All money place day, all money cafe day up. Together we will continue the journey. Thank una so much. We'll be so happy. We'll be so grateful. Together we go push all those territory, those terrorists them, remove them from territory, so that we go build a wonderful country where we go be there together, enjoy life together. We don't tire. We no be no money slave. We no be no money house boy. We get a reason. We not continue to put up a good fight. We there for here because all man of it be for the same place. We must do part and we must do una part. Kudos. We'll be so happy. We'll be so proud. We'll be so for all una innovation, for so all una prospect, for all una energy. We want tell una say a monument be already built in our heart. A monument for all the men and women where they don't sacrifice a lot. Una sacrifices will never be forgotten, and una place the day all shake no day. Una cafe the day up. 21 gun salute, 500 armor car salute, small for game for una. Thank una so much. Keep the fire burning. We be the generation wey we don decide for chop fire, hold grass, shake no dey. Thank una so much. This is Mama Wally.
My fellow Ambazonians, good evening to Ambazonians all across the globe. Make we first of all start for talk for pidgin for a language Comrade Capo Daniel don't standardize and for all we. My fellow Ambazonians, we'll be very grateful for all una. Say una don't take the time for joining for this evening time for Ambazonia. When at 4 p.m. 4:20 for Ambazonian time, and 11 o'clock for morning time, 11:20 for morning time for North America, for Canada, United States, and for Mexico. We salute all our papa them, all our mommy them across the globe. We salute all our defense forces them. We salute all our generals them. We cut cafe for the overall Grand Commander, General Efang, the Supreme Commander, where they lead the Ambazonia Defense Forces and all the forces them for Ground Zero. General Efang, we cut you cafe. Lieutenant General Popo, we salute una for una great work una di do. Yes, Commander General Cobra, we salute you. General Sumanguru, we salute you. General Hassan, General Ebube, yes, General Captain Commander Capo, we salute you. General Pikin for Manu, we caught you cafe. Yes, Captain Small Pikin of the Fako Brigade, ya cafe day up. For all our forces them and for all our commanders them, we want come for can salute all una and we thank una for the great work we una di do for give, for protect our people, for defend our people, and for make sure say Ambazonia it be liberated. We thank all una. For all our papa them, all our mama them, all Ambazonians them. We every Monday, we the whole country Sunday, for observe a collective ghost town, for demonstrate for Cameroon and to the international community. Say this war of independence, now the people they are own. Say this war of independence, now the people they are own. Now the people don't woke up for fight for it. So one thank all una for una collective sacrifices. All our refugees they did across the world, especially the one they did for Nigeria. We want salute all una. We want tell una say they say wait till we don't ask for.
Power off.
We get a leader. We get defense forces. We get institutions them where they don't woke up for stand, for fight for that independence. For all Ambazonians and for diaspora, we want thank una plenty for una consistent support, for una trust for this leadership, for una trust to the roadmap, and for una trust for the strategy. Today, we get a very unique opportunity for get an interaction, a conversation with the leader for our war of independence, Dr. Ayaba Cho, and also for a corner and for my corner, it being the Deputy Defense Chief for the Ambazonia Defense Forces. The person when I don't give you a new name, when I calling at the FBI of Ambazonia, Comrade Capo Daniel. So one time when I plenty say when I don't take the time for join we encourage all man make you share this link. Make we start. We go to talk for both for Pidgin and we go to talk for Oyibo English as well. Make we start.
Yeah. So Mr. PS, I want to also take the opportunity to greet everybody in Ground Zero and to welcome our Commander-in-Chief. Today we are on, it's going to be like a panel between me and the PS, having our leader today to talk to us. Is going to be a wonderful opportunity. I think this is the first time we have had this type of platform on Facebook, on YouTube, and it will be very good for our people, in particularly in Ground Zero, because they have been complaining about suppression from Facebook. So this is going to be very, very excited, and we hope it will go down through, and people will be able to have the link on Facebook as well, so they could join us. Welcome, sir. Welcome. The President of the Governing Council, our Commander-in-Chief, the leader of our War of Liberation, Dr. Cho Ayaba. Welcome, sir.
Thanks a lot, TDCS. Thanks, PS, for having me, and thanks to our citizens for taking off time, to listen to us.
Before I think Mr. Lucas will be the main moderator, but I'll be firing from behind with all my, I cannot just wait. We just begin with a wonderful monologue from our mother, our mama forces for Ambazonia, Wally on the Move. And in that monologue, I cannot just wait for us to hear the impression our commander-in-chief has with the Bamenda Brigade. We have already launched a massive attack on 4 locations in Bamenda, one in the JMI against the La République du Cameroun post, a well-bunkered post. We also launched an attack in the grandstand using an explosive, and also in the market using an explosive. And no civilian was hurt, no civilian was around that area when those explosives went on. We also launched another attack in the old town. And I hope to hear the impression of our commander-in-chief if finally we are now already beating the level or reach that level that our braveheart have set for us, General Ayaba. How is your impression today with the wonderful victory we have had in Bamenda?
I am impressed. I am impressed, but I'm not also surprised. You know, the way that we have structured the Ambazonian Defense Forces gives it the long-term tenacity to develop, to innovate. So the critical to this is leadership, which I want to thank the coordinator from MESAM. I want to thank you, DDCS, for giving the soldiers a voice. What you have done and what you are doing, including the PS, is to give the commanders and the brave fighters a sense of ownership of the actions they take. In the past, it has always been Ayaba-centric. Oh, it's Ayaba is the sick. No, now it's about the commanders. And once they know they are at the center of it all, it is easy for them to give their lives, knowing they will never be forgotten, knowing that the bleeding, they bleed, the dying, they die, is gonna be for a sense of self-ownership. It's just about getting started. Today, I have held a series of meetings, and I'll be signing $15,000 into MESAM in the next 24 hours. We need to move MESAM to the point where Bamenda can fall in the takeover plan. They have the possibility of taking over that city. I have had a series of fine discussions today. I know I need to still come to your desk, DDCS, because you are within that, you run that that particular Savannah state. But in the next 24 hours, we should be injecting more finances into MESAM, and I call on our people to continuously commit. We are approaching the state of takeover, and our boys are daring.
Yeah, so today, before Mr. Lucas is take over, I'm just so excited. You know, I just spoke to our patrol leader of one of our units. They have run a patrol, and the colonial forces, they have really retreated. Today, they had just a couple of soldiers who were hiding themselves in the Total there Mobile, and the patrol from Total Mobile, they left them there. They went over to Foncha Street, go right to My 5, and there were no controls. For the first time in Bamenda, there were no controls between Mobile right up to My 4. So that is an incredible score we have given today. It's a big score.
Yes, yeah. I followed you before we got into this program, and you said something unique. You said, with respect to the situation in Bambili, when the captured spy explained why he was afraid to step out in a particular area, because he was afraid the population was going to report him to the commander. And you said people should listen carefully. The difference in reception between Ambazonian Defense Forces and the occupying forces. There is a strong interaction. There is a strong belief. I spoke to a denizen in Bamenda a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to know if what we were doing was at variance with their expectations and ambition. Maybe we are talking about this independence from an abstract leadership perspective. Do they really think they can sacrifice? And she said to me, determination in the people is more than we think. that the people are willing to go for the longest time in terms of sacrifice. What we simply need to do is to communicate our intentions in a properly packaged manner that makes sense to them. Thanks to the two of you seated in front of me, I feel like retiring from the realm of communication. You people are the deal. Yes, and with you people, be rest assured I can sit behind, mobilize the resources, provide the strategy, and make sure that we represent the ambitions of Ambazonians internationally in a way that reflects respect and a reflection of what of the fact that the people know exactly what they want.
All right, DDC. Let me ask you this question. Since you became the deputy defense chief of the Savannah State, you have taken the war to a different level. Recently, you were on the colonial TV, Afrik Media, and you battled them on their own national TV station. You said something that quivered them. It actually silenced them. None of them could even utter a word. You told them that Ambazonia is a sovereign state. That statement alone shuts everybody down. What was your impression when they were in the midst of these people bringing this kind of truth that their colonial system has denied them for a very long time?
Yeah, bro. I think that the thing is that these people they know they know the truth. You know the truth when you hear it. There is something about the truth that pricks your heart. And with us, we are lucky to have. For me as an activist, we are lucky to have a leadership that understands value, that have principles that we can count on.
Yes.
And that is something I think in the African community here in Hong Kong, I mix with all Africans from all across the globe. And we have always lacked leaders who have principles that we can hold on to. So you can see us being bold, being more assertive to the things that we knew before, but it has not materialized. So we now have somebody the nation can inject themselves into and say that this thing we believe, this thing we know, this thing we have read about, we can stand for it. We have somebody who can stand at the top, not being able to be compromised, not being able to waver or blink in terms of his principle in Dr. Cho Ayaba. And I think they can clearly see that. We need that, and I think that is where I draw my strength. And they have seen a bit of our leadership.
Let me add to that what Capo did. I follow both of you every day. Capo did not only in leadership and in communication. Something matters. There are an expression of 3 facts in leadership communication. The knowledge matters, but it can be communicated by anyone. What matters a lot? Conviction. Conviction. What Capo did in the household of the enemy is exactly what Wiba did in their stronghold. Wiba didn't just communicate the facts. He packaged it in a way that the enemy knew this man means business. It's not like we haven't got people who communicated before. What Capo has said, the reason they fear this generation, you cannot compromise us. We all are willing to die before La Republique succeeds in Ambazonia. That's what Capo did to them. And I stood up. I could not listen while sitting. I stood up. And I felt for once like, damn it. Even if I'm gone today, it's not going to be over. And I am grateful for all of us. I know you people always like to make it me, but every day you people go out and learn something. Let me add one last thing on the issue of sovereignty. What we must know is that on the 30th of September 1960, London transferred sovereignty to Yaoundé and not to Boya. Ambazonia had its independence. But independence is nothing without sovereignty. The cloak of sovereignty is critical for territorial control, for the jurisdiction of your law, and to be held accountable for actions that occur within a particular territory, and for the concept of non-intervention. Once sovereignty was transferred instead to Yaoundé and not Boya, Cameroon has been exercising that sovereignty over our land. And that's exactly what we need to get back.
Sir, you have designed a strategy to get that sovereignty back. You've given a roadmap to the Ambazonian people. You've given them a strategy. How can you equate that to where the war of independence is today in getting back that sovereignty that has been taken away from the Ambazonian people since the 30th of September 1960?
Every morning when I get up, the only thing that makes me feel sad are the amount of wounded soldiers, families whose lives have been shattered, the utter brutality of the enemy. It doesn't surprise me, but it shakes me to the core. I can say without any doubt, what we are doing is simply providing direction. We have created an airplane with an autopilot system. What we do, we are spokesmen and women for the brave men transforming that strategy into reality. The strategy we have put in place is undefeatable. We are fighting across the entire territory of Ambazonia. It's unique. And this didn't come out of chance. We knew Nigeria is not for us. We knew if we provided a single battlefield to the enemy, they are a genocidal regime. They will crush us within that particular space, kill 1,000 people, and they will not apologize. We knew if we spread them thin, we will make them vulnerable. The weakest link in Cameroon's approach to this occupation is arrogance. It is classical in any master-slave relationship, the sense of ownership of the slave and the arrogance that comes with it. Cameroon is so arrogant that it is blinded to the reality it is facing. It is that arrogance that makes them make mistakes on a daily basis. We have a strategy that Ambazonians should rally behind. We have the leadership put in place that has not only constructed that strategy, but has designed a post-independence plan that will take effect on day one, that the transitional system of governance will be put in place. Ambazonians need to realize in this stage of liberation, the prisoners count on that strategy. The ordinary Ambazonians, they count on that strategy. And I can assure both of you, even those who hate Dr. Cho Ayaba, get up every day and pray to God Almighty that I should still be alive. They know it. La Republic takes me out, there will be chaos. It doesn't mean we will not have independence. Now, each move the international system makes, each move Cameroon makes, Ambazonians want to know what is the counter strategy. That counter strategy keeps them calm. Without that leadership that presents an ultimate standpoint on every policy developed, whether domestically or internationally, this war of liberation will become chaotic. It will become a war of attrition. It will be a winner takes it all. It will increase the amount of people dying. It will increase the insecurity and the instability in the Gulf of Guinea. That is what we bring onto the table.
I was asked a similar question along that line of thought by this coming from this guy calling himself a doctor in America, Dr. Sobo. And I think your worst critic and your worst haters is La République du Cameroun and Mr. Paul Biya himself. and I want to follow up on that, and I will say without blinking, you have the highest support right now, in terms of the structures that is being supported financially. The AGOPC and the ADF is having the highest endorsement from the Ambazonian people, and the love of our soldiers and yourself is just formidable. And I want to ask, how will you attribute this transition? Because we have come from a place where the coffin revolution, as they call it, or Ambazonia rising, as Godidinka will call it, where the civil society have transfer, or they came and joined the revolution or the liberation. And now that the people have come a long way. Somebody like me, I was born and thinking, I was born like somebody born in the church. You grow up and you just think about that particular church unless you encounter Christ. And I've grown to maturity now. I realize that I'm an Ambazonian. And now I identify myself a struggle that you have championed all your life while we were still drinking milk. And this firm that have come and you are now the leader of our movement, and the Ambazonian Southern Cameroon, as we call it, nationality is at the forefront of the mind of our people. What will you attribute this to? Is it the emancipation campaign, or it is just the rejection of these pan-Cameroonian politicians in La République? How will you attribute this transformation we have seen within the past 4 years?
DDCS, I have always been the leader of this war of liberation. I have always been. Ambazonians have always recognized that. They have always recognized it. And that leadership is not in terms of my personality. But that leadership has always manifested itself in terms of the ideas, the ideals. Now, every liberation struggle or every political movement for change or emancipation or liberation functions around certain conceptual framework. We have defined all the concepts that this liberation struggle rests on, whether it's defining the enemies and making them easily identifiable as enablers, whether calling those who simply were using the breakout, break-in principle and calling them infiltrators, whether defining the strategy of the block by block that gives every Ambazonian a sense of ownership and right to defend within their block, whether defining the issue of reaching contenderhood on the ground or internationally and being called upon and not begging to talk. It's not Dr. Cho Ayaba, but the concept we Secondly, in terms of defense, the experience I have had in the past 32 years fighting Paul Biya made me from the beginning to be able to indicate to Ambazonians what we will require. Self-defense as a strategy in the overall plan for our liberation. We have put that in place. We have always been the leaders of this war of liberation. When you talk about the change in perception, at the beginning, there were others who were loud, who created a system that replicated, what our people were escaping from. Don't forget, our people have been under governments for so long, and to simply just tell them that they are fighting for liberation without providing a safety net that you can transition to that period of liberation is frightening. That's why the notion of a government has always been very appetizing to Ambazonians. Even those who created the government still knew in their depth of heart who was leading. They spoke of that in private. Today, they recognize it. They may fight it publicly, but we have always been the leaders of this war of liberation. Thank God, the transition you are talking about, after a while, as I warned initially, the liberation struggle is like a marathon, not a sprint. If you lie enough in a presidential campaign, you're going to win. You cannot lie your way to victory in a liberation struggle because it takes a while before people begin to unmask the lies. But we can still lose because they have a stronger propaganda. Thanks to both of you who come out regularly. The Ambazonian Governing Council have lacked this sense of regular outings to be able to educate and counter the narrative of deceit that sometimes, however palatable, does not stand the test of time. So I can assure you, and I can assure, in the mindset of our people, they know that Dr. Cho Ayaba has been the leader of our liberation quest, and that has not changed.
DDC, to add to what the leader has said, the change in perception and in involvement is as a result of the change in our narrative and in our communication. We changed the way we communicated to the Ambazonian people. You know, you and I, we actually will sit for hours and hours and create all these things and actually look for how we can do this in the way that it changed the narrative. Because what happened in the past was these fake, false promises where our people could not match it with the reality on the ground. It was false expectation. So there was a disconnection between what they were preaching to the people in terms of God, the gospel of governance and independence, and what was happening on the ground. There was a disconnection. What the AGOVC and the ADF did was to match the people's aspiration with a practical plan that altered the reality on the ground. It wasn't just telling people about independence on TV when there was no plan and saying, I'm the president, when our people are being slaughtered. And so the old frame approach of the force of argument, that was the whole concept. They've built that since 1961. It destroyed the people for almost since 1961. It destroyed the people for almost 70 years, if I'm not mistaken. Since 1961. Almost 60 years. Totally destroyed our people. Failure after failure. What Dr. Ayaba did was to change that psychology. Whatever method it was, it couldn't give our people. It was a false hope. Our people would have lived for the next 1,000 years. So what he did was to say, look, we've tried this, we've tested it, it has to change. And this is how we understand the enemy. And this is how they play the game. And this is how the international system works. He was very honest to the people. He said it's going to take pain, it's going to take sacrifices, it's going to take sweat, it's going to take people living in the bushes, it's going to take us fighting them. That's what it's going to take. He never said just because, we are a sovereign state, even though we don't have the status of sovereignty on our hand. We have the legal background, we have the rights for self-determination, we have all those things. The historical background, it's all on our favor. But that does not translate into independence and freedom for the people. It's just all talk. So what he did was to bring something that was practical. And once the ADF showed up, and then General Ivo showed up, you remember, Capo, you actually convinced Dr. Ayaba, you convinced the ADF to put a face on the ground. You remember? You convinced the ADF. We had these conversations in the background. We said, look, for us to be taken seriously, a face has to be on the ground that can be identified with the defense forces. We made this convincing argument since in early 2017.
It has been very tough business. It's not easy, coming up I don't know how these people did. Somehow, I was born carrying a Cameroon flag. I don't know how it happened. Now it's everywhere on Facebook. So I don't know what they did, and we carried that flag. But somehow we still had some relics, and we still had people that knew that this wasn't right. Because some of us, we knew it wasn't right. We were just confused. What am I feeling strange? We have people singing songs like, "We are, where are we? Is this our country? Is this not our country?"
Yes.
But something didn't feel right about the whole experience.
That's right. So
And now,
Capo,
yeah.
let me finish that thought. So what happened was the moment the AGOVC and ADF started translating the roadmap, the vision into a practical application on the ground. Our people now were not living in false hope anymore. Now they can see clearly. General Ivo became the face of self-defense on the ground, became the leader of the liberation on the ground. You said the president said it. He made Cameroon be police and army to be invincible. They thought they were invincible. He shattered that invincibility by battling them with his bare hands. From that day, once we could prove that we have the capability to beat Cameroon with nothing, the game on the ground changed. Confidence was instilled on our people, not from talking on TV. On the ground, the people can see the results. The army started running away. The bees started running away. They started hearing the name ADF. Then that changed the narrative. Now they were all scared. And then they went on this propaganda machine about the ADF. Oh, they have brought journalists on the territory. Oh, they are going to expose everything. You remember? So it was this consistent education where we started to practicalize the strategy on the ground. We started to practicalize the strategy in terms of the ghost town. Remember, we came up with the pillars of the revolution, of the liberation. Ghost town, colonial school boycott, self-defense. You remember this? And internationalization in terms of all what we do here. Once we start to interpret and put this thing into perspective in which our people know that if we take the practical steps, Cameroon will be defeated based on that roadmap. Then we spend the last 2 years just to focus on educating our people on that roadmap until it became accepted. So it was
easy job, my brother.
it was a change in our it was a change in our education to take that roadmap, to take that vision, to take that strategy, and then look at what General Ivo was doing on the ground. How do we communicate it out here in which it becomes something everybody can see clearly? So that was the magic. But I think the overall game changer was the defiance of Dr. Ayaba. All the stones they threw at him, all the spears, all the smear campaign, all the blackmailing, that never altered him. It never changed him. It never made him to move in the background to say, you know what, I don't want to take this anymore. Once our people realized that, no matter what they said to him, no matter how Cameroon hired enablers and infiltrators to go after him, they recruited everybody to go after him. Once the Ambazonian people realized that they have a leadership they can count on, and that the independence is stable, the revolution is stable, there is consistency in that leadership, that was where I think everybody bought into the fact that the game is over for Cameroon.
And I think it's a journey of all of us, because me, even my personal life, living amongst Francophones and amongst Cameroonians, you know, even here in Hong Kong, we have our Cameroonian meeting. And with our educational background, there is always a difference, because these people have been assimilated in a manner, like Dr. Cho would say, they have an arrogance in them, that they look at you and they want you to speak their language. And when in all the around the diaspora, in all those communities, the so-called Anglophones are always leading, because we have a way of thinking a thing in the right way. And these people, they had abandoned leadership in the diaspora because we're very pragmatic people. And out of a sudden, they are now realizing there is something called a Cameroon, and they're asking us to come and fight to change, to resume change. But I would like to change that topic, if I PS, and ask Dr. Cho with something that is very hot now, hot potatoes.
Go ahead.
The madman in Yaoundé, one of our brothers who have become a traitor, Atanganji 4 have suddenly banned cutlasses. What think the impact of banning of cutlasses, these guys, what crazy thing is going on there? What do you think this thing is going to do upon us? Because we are definitely his target. He's banning cutlasses, trying to show the mad king that he's fighting against our liberation.
This is what you should know, and I don't want you people to be confused. Now, these guys have no powers to institute any law within Ambazonia. It's a different territory. I think one of the guy called Sumba or somebody who wrote
Diodone, yes.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, that governmentability is dead in Ambazonia. They are experimenting, reacting to events. Those are signs of the end times. When you start finding ministers, making laughable decisions to the extent of banning cutlasses. Let me tell you something. Cutlasses are important tools for our people in terms of agriculture and doing all the things that they do. And so one of the strategy of occupation regime has always been to turn the population against the resistance. And that is an effective strategy that occupation regimes have designed, because they know resistance usually survive once the population supports that resistance. But when you institute policies like banning cutlasses, which is critical for that civil population, you are aligning the population's action with that of the resistance. You are providing reason for that population to support the resistance. You are giving enough justification to the resistance why you must continue. But I know why they are banning cutlasses and all of these things. They believe that a cutlass is made out of metal, and so some of the explosive devices that our boys use have shrapnels, and they feel like eliminating any kind of metallic, things from our society will reduce the amount of shrapnel that goes into those pops and will reduce the effectiveness and impact of those pops. But this is exactly what they do to us. When they make it difficult for our guys to even buy guns from anywhere else, we start making guns by ourselves. Right. You ban people from having cutlasses or anybody. And I give you this assignment. DDC, go straight to the chief of armory, begin discussing with all of your armories across the territory on a technology to begin production of Ambazonian-made cutlasses. They stop it coming from their country, begin producing cutlasses and handing it over to our farmers to continue growing crops, keeping our communities safe in whatever way. They are turning this generation into innovators, and it will make our job easy on the first day of liberation.
We'll do that. We'll do just that, and I'll come back to you with the cutlass delivered on ground zero.
Made in Ambazonia.
Made in Ambazonia. and one thing I want just to let us not go too far without mentioning it is a very sad incident that you have condemned, the killing of this lady in Moyoka, which we have all condemned. And I want to ask you, because I was in the African media and I could clearly see the hypocrisy of this pan-Cameroonian elite who seems to want to give the impression that they care about this, our citizen that was killed. And the military came there, the Cameroon military came there and harassed everybody there, arrested close to 700 people. And they have shown, including those in the media and those who are faking this concern about this lady, including the international community. But they somehow have ignored all the evidence, the confession of the killer and the sponsors of the killer. What would you say about this hypocrisy that people are showing concern about the victim, but ignoring and pretending that they don't know the killer and the conspirators behind the killing?
Let me speak for Ambazonia. I have never watched that video. I have listened and read the description. It's unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable. I don't want to do comparative analysis or whatever. I don't want to do a sort of moral equivalence what is justifiable, what is not justifiable, what is quantifiable, and what is not. It is un-Ambazonian to subject our female citizen to such a level of evil. I watched the lady's face. I could not bear it. You could look into her eyes, and it's very painful. That same morning, before I even ever went out, I was blunt with commanders, and you were inside that DDCS. You are inside that group. I made it absolutely clear. This is unacceptable. Now, let me say something, and I've said this a couple of times. Spies have no single day in our country, in our war of liberation. It has nothing with the denier of, opinion. It has nothing with the denier of pluralism. In every war of liberation that deals with a matter of existence and survival of a people, spies have no space. We are not reinventing the wheel. It's a customary practice across time and space. Those who enable colonialism, those who infiltrate to spy on our forces and cause the death and destruction of our cities and villages. Mr. Snowden, who leaked information in the United States of America concerning the activities of the NSA, is still hiding in Russia today. And so we should understand, and the world must understand, the leakage of Mr. Snowden does not threaten the existence of the United States of America. Those who spy for other countries do not in any way threaten the survival of those particular states. But those who spy for the enemy in a war of liberation, where the enemy acts in a manner of attrition, imperil the survival of that state, its people, and everything. That is why those who spy are classified enemy, and we do not have one day to keep them. But if you can take out a spy from a distance, that's fair game. If you are able to determine through your different sources, because our forces are sophisticated. They monitor spies for long. I know that. And DDCS, you know that. PS, you know that. If you capture a spy, you shall not engage in summary execution in an inhumane manner. The reason why the world is opposed to the death penalty and why those who practice the death penalty have instituted different ways of taking away life is because thou shall not, in the process of deprivation of life, inflict pain to the one that you want to take the life. You are accumulating the punishment. And so DDCS, as a defense coordinator, PS, who is connected to the forces, it is critical to instruct a population to desist from any communication or activities with the enemy forces, their appendages on the ground, and to our forces to exercise, respect for the sanctity of human life and for the dignity of the human person. That is who we are. We are not going to recreate Cameroon in Ambazonia. On the issue of the reaction of Cameroon, of course, you expect them to take an accidental occurrence, because I say this, no crime that has been committed, no activity of our defense forces has reached the minimum threshold to be taken to any court beyond the jurisdiction of Ambazonia. There has not been any policy put in place designed to take away human life, to inflict pain, to subject people to systematic torture. There is no practice that is systematic in nature, sanctioned by leaders to torture, to execute. None exist. These are accidental, incidental occurrences. Compare that, and I'm preparing a lecture on this. This will be before the 1st of October. I'm preparing a lecture. It will take about 3 hours to prove the case of genocide against Ambazonia. I'm already working on that. Compare the incidental, accidental actions of individual soldiers not defined by policy or practice to the actions of Cameroun, which is part of policy, is part of practice. Burning down of villages, it's not accidental. It's policy. It's punitive action by an occupying regime to subject a population to malaise. Take the kidnapping and rendition of Ambazonians from our territory into Cameroon. It is policy. Take the arrest and torture of most of the prisoners. That is part of policy. And if you look at actions described as crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of aggression, are actions that are seen as practice or policy. And Cameroon cannot capitalize on a sad situation of the death of our citizen to make a case against Ambazonia. It cannot stand, and Ambazonians must not be afraid. We leaders have come out, have spoken against it. You people have come out and are able to speak against it and expose it. Lastly, let me say this. She wouldn't have died if Cameroon did not impose the conditions of occupation and aggression and impunity that have compelled Ambazonians to take up arms to defend themselves. No Ambazonian would have died in the hands of our defense forces accidentally or incidentally without the policies of occupation and actions of the regime of occupation. It is Cameroon that is the signatory to the 4 Geneva Conventions. It is the United Nations and all other international institutions that are institutions that enforce those conventions and protocols. Ambazonia is not a signatory, but Ambazonia is the only party in this conflict that has a code of conduct that reflects the 4 Geneva Conventions and international human rights law in times of peace that actually respects it. Ambazonia is the only state that faces a threat on its own survival, but is still able to act in a manner of dignity and respect for human life. We shall not, and I can repeat this, be afraid of anyone, Cameroon, the international system, because we conduct ourselves based on rules, customary rules, treaty norms, and any other thing that is thrown against us, because we know that we do not want to build a post-independence Ambazonia that is chaotic.
And I think also the targeting of our civilian, the pastor, I call him the hero pastor, Ambazonian hero pastor, who had a vision from God, and he fly the Ambazonian flag and wrote on his signboard about Ambazonia. He was recently killed. And do you think the civilian population, we have seen the Cameroon military mutilate bodies of our soldiers or young men they suspect of being Amber boys, butchering some of them with axes. But the death of this pastor, do you see it in terms of a proof finally that the war can say that these people are launching a full-blown war, not even against Ambazonian guys who have picked up arms, but against our civilian equally?
Now, DDCS, let me say the following. Even the soldiers, when captured, must die in dignity. Above the law was a soldier in the Bamenda Brigade and was captured and was strangled, was killed behind their home in a very brutal manner, and his body was abandoned there. We have the photos. He left behind 2 kids. Yesterday, Cameroon forces were operating within Bafut. The Secretary for Human Rights and Humanitarian Affairs, Cecilia Amabo, the brother was taken into custody, and they shot another one, I think it's a cousin, who escaped. And the cousin was hiding in the bush and overheard the soldiers who had captured the other one, debating amongst themselves whether to execute him. After a short while, a gunshot was heard. The auntie to her have lost, this is the last surviving son. And we are sure that he was executed. We observed the other day an Ambazonian citizen, the lifeless body was pulled for a couple of hundreds of meters. We listened to the voices of the occupier, the language of occupation, the anger and arrogance. It was not enough. In the full glare, pointed an assault rifle on his head and pulled the trigger. A few days before, we had this pastor. His weapon, his Bible, his conviction, his symbol, his flag. You could realize how many occupational forces invaded his premises. With no respect for his dignity, his religion, they battered him, put him on the floor. He still spoke with conviction. As you did call him a hero, he is. And we now know that they executed him. They have invaded Ikata since the declaration of war more than 20 times. They've raped women in a systematic manner. They've tortured. In Moyoka the other day, they rounded up an entire community, whisked away in trucks, detained them incommunicado. Got confessions. We are still not very much aware of what transpired in detention. They have assaulted different villages. They've destroyed properties in Pinyin. They have destroyed our economic potentials in terms of little shops that our people set up, support their families. They have broken into those shops, looted, destroyed the shops. They have burned down chiefs' palaces. We saw that clearly in a live video that was presented in Lebialem. They have used schools as military bases. They have invaded hospitals and taken out wounded soldiers and executed them. They have captured commanders and brutally tortured them and murdered them. We know that from the onset, the BBC did a report that exposed all of this brutality. What did the world do? They went to Ngabo. They massacred children, were buried all in a mass grave. The world asked the arsonist to investigate his fire and call on those facing a threat on their survival to exercise restraint. What did they do? Nothing. We have observed more than 600 villages razed to the ground. 1 million people internally displaced. Women, birthing in the bushes, using leaves as sanitation. With a useless call by the Secretary General for Global Ceasefire and Cameroon's non-committal stance, nothing happened. International system helpless in the face of glaring butchery and evidence presented to them. Now they have turned unable to fight our brave fighters who are taking the battle to them. They've turned on the population, rounding them up with the hope they can empty towns and cities and villages to isolate our forces. Hope that through their pressure, through their impunity, they can make you and myself Cameroonians. This is what we face. But this is the last chapter of every occupation regime. And as I wrote today, Ambazonians must be prepared for thousands of our people to be killed. You sitting there in Hong Kong, you should be prepared to die. The PS sitting there must know they will come for you. But one thing is certain. before they ever moved into homeland, Amba was there. No matter the amount of people they butcher, the humiliation they impose on us, Amba will be there. This is a story these people cannot write for us. And let our people know that no matter what it takes, they must stand up with conviction. Madmen.
Yeah. If they don't come for me, CIC, I'll go for them. and I think we have also seen, apart from the killing, this collective punishment in Boya when they try to intimidate traders, seal shops, and the next Monday the population just close up shops more than they had did before that incident happened. We've seen also in Kumba, the people of Kumba have closed shops on Monday. The Independent Day goes down to signify to the world that we want independence and nothing but independence. And we also see in Bamenda yesterday, finally we are having pictures now of mass arrests, even in Bamenda, of our citizens being rounded up, taken to police stations, beat them, humiliate them. We saw that in Boya. And do you think, even us Ambazonian, do you think we are having enough coverage? And to that issue of coverage, don't you think you as the president of the governing council needs to intervene and make sure we have our own TV station now that it has been more than a month since the SCBC last grants passage to any of the frontline communicators of the Amazonian Governing Council and the ADF?
I agree with you that the absence of direct communication with our people that penetrates the hinterlands has given has caused some setbacks. It has caused some setbacks because, as I said before, I never for 1 second believe that anyone will use a television against us. I mean, us the Amazonians. I always believe very strongly that anyone who creates a defense force or sets up a defense force will use it to defend every Ambazonian, irrespective of their allegiances. As I said today to one of my advisors, I don't care under who you fight. If you fight under the flag, sing the anthem, you will receive our support. It has become apparent that you people will definitely need means of communicating to the ground directly. But I've also warned the AGOs that this should not come at the expense of the defense of the homeland. And I have advised strongly that they are able to show proof of their ability to mobilize resources separately for this project. Communication is critical. I have given my blessings for the Ambazonian Governing Council to set up a Liberation TV that speaks for the Ambazonian people, defend the universal values of freedom that shall never be used to politicize, market Dr. Ayaba, but to defend the interests of the Ambazonian people, show respect for all those who fight under the flag and sing the anthem. I've given my blessings to that, and I trust in you people that in the shortest time possible, you will realize that project. I don't want to go into it because I have been asked to stay away from that. So I know the project is ongoing, and so let's say more on that.
DDC, let me add to what you were saying in terms of the actions of Cameroon. DDC, from if you look at it from the way Cameroon is behaving recently, or the way they have conducted themselves, Cameroon has nothing to tell the world its claim over Ambazonia. Doesn't. Cameroon has never. Have you ever heard Paul Biya talked about? They only talked about national unity. Right? They only talked about Cameroon is one and indivisible. What logical argument has the Cameroon government put forth to lay claim over Ambazonia. They have nothing. Have you ever heard them? None of their ministers can justify their claim over Ambazonia. They cannot. They have none. They don't. That's why they are hiding in what they call Cameroon is one and indivisible. In what way? When? How? They cannot. Their behavior, it's a force, it's a use of force to impose ownership. That's all it is. That's why they are doing all these things to impose ownership, because the world will not intervene until we ourselves, we are the ones, as we've done, we decided to defeat Cameroon, to change their narrative, defeat their argument, which they have none. You proved to them the other day when you talked about sovereignty. They all sat quiet because they have nothing to talk about what they are doing in Ambazonia. Paul Biya cannot come to the world and tell the world what they are doing in Ambazonia. Have they ever tell you what they have done to the Ambazonian people? They cannot give you a compelling argument as to why Ambazonia should be with Cameroon. Have they given that to the Ambazonian people? John Gute cannot do that. Paul Biya has not done it. Even Bala, their new spokesperson, cannot do it. Akere Muna cannot. They don't have an argument. I will beat every single one of them on any platform, even in Cameroon TV, on this case, because they have nothing. So what are they fighting for Ambazonia? Nothing. For their own survival, for the survival of Cameroon. So when you see all this chaos they are causing, it's just to impose, to intimidate our people. They thought we are the Bamilekes. Ambazonians are not Bamilekes. It's not going to work. They can butcher, cut people's head, and hang on village square. Ambazonia is a sovereign state. We are staking our claim to that freedom. And it's non-negotiable. They cannot do anything to any of us. We are ready to face them anywhere and at any time. You know, I've seen that they are circulating my picture. Lucas Asu is in Canada. He's encouraging terrorism in Cameroon. The RCMP is what they call the FBI. The FBI is in the United States. We have RCMP here. They watch my videos every single day. It's all based on my rights as a person. I have moral, I have social rights. The fact that I have freedom, I have the moral responsibility to fight for the freedom of other people. The fact that I have life, I have the moral responsibility to protect the lives of other people. They have that. I have a place where there is justice. I have the moral responsibility to stand up for the justice of other people that have been denied justice. They can come and take me to court for that. Idiots.
They have a barbaric argument. Is the argument they are making is that we will kill you more if you don't surrender. It's the argument of it's so primitive.
It's defeat, DDC. They have been defeated. What else do they have? Do they have a strategy? The DW went and did an interview with their Bs. They took them around. It's a 4-minute video. The whole B commander cannot justify what's their strategy to win the revolution. They don't.
Like the lady that called on the first outing at the African TV, she said that people are dying. So their logic is, for you to stop us from killing you, you have to. It's so primitive.
The people are dying. Who declared the war? That's the whole thing. Who declared the war?
Yeah.
Who is occupying Ambazonia? So who is killing people?
Yeah.
These people are so.
Repent for it. I wanted to actually to drag the, if I may, the
Go ahead.
conversation to the doubling declaration. It's more than a year, Dr. Cho, our president. It's more than a year since the doubling declaration. We have had incidents in Cameroon. Yesterday, they had a fear. There was like an insulin pump in their ministry of whatever ministry was that.
Ministry of Public Services.
Clearly see that the invincible Yaoundé, where Paul Biya says that it is untouchable, they are scared to their bones what do you have to say? Are you satisfied with the ADF implementation of the Dublin conference so far? And do you see that as indication that Yaoundé is living in fear?
Remember that our strategy was designed not for an outright military victory on the ground, even though that is looking more likely. The strategy was designed. That's why when you sat there at Afrique Media and I listened to the Cameroonian complaining, and I said, Lord, what a pity. What a pity, because the strategy we had was to undermine Cameroon's fighting ability within Ambazonia, weaken them to the extent where Cameroonians will use that opportunity to rise up and dismantle the structures of autocracy within Cameroon. And when I watch a Cameroonian who should have been organizing themselves to use to seize the opportunity of our resistance, complaining about you, and it was something laughable. But we will be observing more insecurity within Cameroon. Dublin was not simply meant for the ADF to put a plan and implement it within Cameroon, even though it has done. We'll have some setbacks on that, which I will be telling the Ambazonian people in the weeks ahead on that strategy of taking the battle to the enemy. Dublin was also designed to inspire others to know that eliminating a threat from its source, whether within our own territory or beyond, is legally justifiable. And also to inspire Cameroonians to know that you can borrow from our playbook and create a kind of insecurity that will have two effects. One, destabilize and probably crumble the regime from inside. Second, reduce the amount of forces deployed in Ambazonia to protect power in Yaoundé. We are seeing that happening. There will be more fear. I ask on our people who are in Cameroon to provide any information that can enable us to attack Cameroon within its own territory. Let our people within Cameroon know that resistance in most countries, those who are expatriates, have used their presence there to undermine the ability of occupiers to deploy forces within their own territory of origin. Now, let me say strategy of the enemy and why it's not working. We just observed that this week their threat on Kumba, on Meme didn't work. We observed that the desperation, as we put this topic, the desperation of the enablers, Ambazonians who are running around with Cameroon military and being disgraced, has not worked. The threat on our people to observe the laws of the occupying regime has not worked. We're working very, very quickly to make sure that we, the suffering of our people, living under these threats. And that's why we are putting in place defense forces in critical areas that can defend our population, that can inflict more damage on the occupying regime, and most importantly, and this should go to both of you, to take out and eliminate all those appendages created within Ambazonia in the name of enablers and facilitators, to support and enable the policies of occupation. Those mayors, those administrators, individuals who are the face of the regime of occupation within Ambazonia, we have to eliminate them as a potential threat to our country. But I'm quite convinced. I'm quite convinced that we are weakening the morale of Cameroon, of their fighters. We have noticed that soldiers have been quarreling. We know that there is a tension. What we have not succeeded in doing, and which is something we should concentrate and ask ourselves, why is it that in the face of this brutality, in the face of this carnage, Ambazonians are still fighting within? the forces of Cameroon. And I really call on both of you to begin to expose them, to begin to expose Ambazonians who are still providing some form of assistance fighting within Cameroon. That is where our policy has not worked well, to get enough Ambazonians to decamp, not only to help our own fighters, but to weaken the ability of Cameroon to survive.
To that effect, not defending, but we'll work on that. I spoke to two bees who are from our territory who are fled, and they had little money, and they are in Libya. I think I will be doing a broadcast of those interviews subsequently, Mr. President and our Commander-in-Chief. So you will hear from us. We are going to double it. Me and our national coach will definitely be doubling our effort to that effect. CIC, last year we had achieved 80% of dynamic control, and this year we have doubled the actual control of the territory that we have conquered and seized back, liberated territory. And when will the governing council, do the governing council have plans to come in with some sort of authority on the ground in terms of governance, now that we have set up coordinators within the territory that we control?
Yes. We had achieved a high percentage of dynamic control. For all those who do not understand what that means, it means the ability to have control over your territory without having some form of static presence in terms of administration, in terms of controlling borders. But we have dynamic control now of, I think we have some setbacks with the activities of the infiltrators. We lost a lot of territory. What I'm seeing now is exciting, extremely exciting. I get up every day and I'm excited, from Fako to Kope Maniguba, to Bui, to Mezam, to Momo. It's exciting. To Ndonga and Mantung, you find communities working together with our forces, doing a lot of things during the height of the COVID-19. When we shared masks to our population, you could see the interaction on a daily basis. You have communities organizing themselves in terms of putting community schools. Today I was talking with the general. There are schools within Meme and Fako that want to upgrade to secondary community, but we are examining. I will be talking with the education secretary and the chair lady of the board to see if the curriculum of education that has been put in place covers secondary education. And in that case, we might be authorizing some level of education only to children below the age of 18. And that is critical, because from 18 years, you are a fighter, and there are a lot of fighters who are students, and so we don't want to create this disparity. Now, we've been working in the past days on some form of civilian administration that is going to be under military supervision, because what I want to prevent is to create competing structures of power that become problematic in the future. What I also want to prevent is to create a sense of authority in people, because Ambazonians have been deprived of power for too long. And anytime you give some form of power to the people who have been deprived from power, they exercise it like they are God. And so we are trying to design a system, because don't forget, as I have argued, Ambazonia is not simply gonna be a prototype of the Western liberal marketization and democratization state that can easily be overthrown. Ambazonia is going to design itself to reflect its cultural realities, its economic realities, to build a state that is unique, that is truly independent, that the people can identify themselves with a form of governance. It is going to be a novelty. And so what we are trying to create now, and I have asked one of my top advisors who is well schooled in this, to advise accordingly the kind of joint civilian and military administration that can take root for purposes of community policing, implementation of the code of justice, looking at community schools, looking at health and sanitation, looking at issues of some form of community development in different areas. So we are working on the kind of system that will be instituted in particular areas and to see how it works out. And this comes at the heels of sometimes the kind of chaos, the kind of tension that occurs between our soldiers and community. Sometimes soldiers take matters into their hands because they have not been prescribed with the kind of policy solutions that can take care of certain things that occur within community. So by October 1, we should be unveiling a unique kind of interactive system between our community and the soldiers that begins to develop the kind of prototype governance institutions that might give Ambazonians a perspective of the kind of country that they are looking to build.
I hope that is going to involve the consideration on the language. You know, I'm a strong advocate for.
I have said this. One of the first things that the colonial systems took away from us is our ability to communicate in our own languages, and they made it so destructive that there are certain, and we still propagate those stereotypes today. So if somebody speaks in Mancon, like where I come from, in a particular area, you know, they feel like, you know, it's your, like they say in Pidgin, it's your country talk, you know. And why is that not your language, you know? So what I'm saying is this: the future Ambazonian government, the leaders who come to govern our country must take into consideration the fact that if you deny the Ambazonian people their ability to use, you know, those tools that they are familiar with, you deny them the possibility of developing. The case of Norway is unique. Norway was under Denmark. It was under Sweden for, I think, 700 years or so. The Norwegian language is similar to the Swedish language. It's similar to the Danish language. Once the Norwegians got independence, Norwegian historians and language experts, they realized that if you simply just allow the Norwegians to speak Swedish, there is an aspect of independence that will be robbed from the Norwegians. And they went down within the different facets of the Norwegian traditional society to build a language from the bottom up that is uniquely Norwegian. And that is part of the psyche, that is part of the sense of ownership of their own independence, part of their pride. And I say this to you people, whoever is going to leave to be part of our governing institution, Ambazonia must have a language. There are 4 principal tribes that make up the Ambazonian society. You have the Tikari, the Widikum, the Sawa, and I think you have the Ijagams. These are the 4 principal. All the others, I think the Ngembas, you know, Widikum is part of the Ngemba is part of the Widikum. These are part of the traditional roots, and we should be able to develop a unique language that 10 years down the line, the Ambazonian child will be able to communicate and make it sound like our national language. It might be 2, it might be 3, but Ambazonia must have a unique language typical of our own society.
I think the PS, why you are gathering your thoughts, or you want to go ahead?
No, I wanted us to reflect back on a question you've asked the leader here. The fall of Cameroon, in terms of the fact that bombs have been going off in Cameroon. Now they are living in a state of fear. They have not been able to. There was Dr. Ayaba, you put out a post about the fact that for 6 months they have not been able to pay the council's workers of the city of Yaoundé. For 6 months, their own council workers in their political capital where Paul Biya lives, He has not been able to pay council workers. The council workers protested. They closed the gate of the city council in Yaoundé. So these are the people that want to come and rebuild and reconstruct Ambazonia? Really?
Let me react to that. Let me, and in the months ahead, we will increase the cost on Cameroon. They will divert more money. I saw they have bought blue armor cars. I saw they bought blue armor cars. And I pity Cameroon a lot. In the months ahead, we will increase the cost on them. Yes, we will increase the cost on them, and they will divert more money into the military. It will not save them. And I can assure you people, it's a matter of time for the uprising that we predict will start in Cameroon. And there are people undertaking within the territorial space of Cameroon. But I'm confident with what we are doing, the commitment of the Ambazonian people to the Ambazonian governing councils, the strategy in terms of defense, internationalization, and that commitment is translating into more funding for our forces. And we have the ability at this stage to fight Cameroon on our own terms. The other day, I think we paid for an assault rifle that was $6,000. One assault rifle. We will increase the capability of our soldiers. As I said at the beginning, I'll be signing off, I think, another 15,000 into MESA. So you should be confident about the direction. I will talk about the international once we exhaust this phase, the implications of our actions on the ground, what we are doing at the international level, the signs we are getting, the statement of Tibor. I'll be able to explain to you people and to our people the significance of these statements and how the writing is on the wall.
No, okay.
Have we done enough to educate our people in terms of the need to stop the exportation of our cash crop, in particular cocoa, because we have encountered on the field in areas where the death of General Ayaba had led to some retreat from our soldiers, and now we are coming back into those areas. We are encountering some communities that have previously had some arrangement with some of these splinter group to allow them to export some cash crop through Douala, and we are stopping it already. We are in the process of doing that, and we are having a lot of those farmers asking us, should we allow export through Nigeria, or if they find their own backdoor ways to export out of our territory through Nigeria? If you may want to weigh on it publicly, if not, no problem.
Yeah, I will say something. One of the things that you have to design, DDCS, and design and let us have that in our policy to work on, is what I call the buyback strategy. The buyback strategy, so we can control those things. So you go into a community that produces cocoa, we design a system to buy all the cocoa, and we'll determine where we sell the cocoa. There is that possibility. Even in other food items that are exported into La République du Cameroun, I don't want to push the button because it might be counterproductive. So we have to study it carefully. For example, any item sold to citizens of La République that benefits the state of Cameroon in terms of further exportation, that has to absolutely stop. But there are some non-cash crop materials and food items that have no direct benefit to the regime in place that might benefit Cameroon, but inject necessary cash into our community to sustain our community and even the war of liberation. But what I've said, and I say to you people, the defense people, is you must control the economy. Every business, every economic activity within. Don't focus only on the military and stuff. You must control the economy. You must determine how the economy operates. As I said the other day, I think to one of the top generals when some people came in that they want to pay a bridge and stuff. There is the temptation to sometimes say, all right, I'll allow these people, even if the money is coming from La Republique, to repair a particular bridge. No, that's a temptation we must avoid. You must have absolute control of the economy. What comes in, what goes out. Any economic activity that benefits Cameroon as a state, you must increase the cost. That means if somehow there are middle people who buy coffee or cocoa, and you have any determination that it will be sold to Cameroon, that then sells it to international buyers at a higher cost to get level of interest, it has to stop. If that action that you implement will affect the population negatively, because it reduces the amount of cash inflow within that community, it reduces the amount of money that traders are going to have, you have to develop a system of buyback, make a proposal, send it to my desk, it will discuss in policy, and we'll see how we can develop a policy position on that. This thing is not simply about killing a kelebe, it's making sure that there is some level of control of the economy, the political system, and the military regime.
PS, you wanna take the go?
Yeah, what I wanted to add was the school. It's about to start, and DDCA. You also DDCS. You posted a video of. This is about the control, how much control we have on the ground in terms of. You actually asked the leader that question when I took a water break to get more water. You asked the question of in terms of was control on the ground. You remember you posted a video. I think it was this morning. We were showing a video from Manu. That video came from my 17 Upper Bayang in Manu, in the village called Ashum, where the forces there intercepted a group of youth that have been employed by the colonial elites to make videos and carry out anti-revolutionary activities to prove to the colonial state that those particular elites from that locality, they have control in terms of pronouncing to the world that things are returning to normal. And our forces responded swiftly, arrested all those people, publicly questioned them. None of them were tortured. None. They publicly questioned them and they confess. That's how much control we have. And when they were confessing, they said something which got my attention. They said we should have asked the forces if this was okay for us to do. We should have come to the defense forces and asked them if this is something we should do. That is control. Our guys control the territory. Right in the stronghold of what La Republique claims to be Manu. The forces control it. That video came directly from Ashum. Our people have control of the ground. The only thing they have in Ambazonia left is their colonial military. That's it. When it comes to governance, they have lost everything. Where is Lele Lafrique? Where is Okala Bilai? Where is Tabetando? Where are all those senators? Where are they? They all live in the colonial capital. Can they go to their various communities? Can they? They know it's over. It's over. Our forces are in charge. And we are only going to increase the takeover plan in terms of implementation and projection and all those places that have been liberated. You see, our children are all going to school. People are carrying out businesses, living their normal day-to-day lives in those areas where our people have secured. The only places that are chaotic, it's only when the colonial military comes there, cause the chaos and the destruction because of the frustration of the defeat. They can't control Ambazonia. The only thing is to increase chaos. They've lost it. What will Paul Biya do? He's been living in hiding. Look at the man who called himself the president of a nation. He's been living in hiding since January. He's been living in hiding. He can't confront the truth anymore. That's a complete failure. His strategy has failed. Everything his touch has failed. 40 years in power. His people are living below poverty line. Come on, man. It's over. It's over. Biya will one day come out to the public and beg Ambazonian for forgiveness. Just watch. In the coming months, Dion Gute will be begging the ADF for forgiveness. Atanganji has put up a statement today to ban the use of cutlasses. Really? If that is not madness, very soon that same Atanganji or Paul Biya will create a commission to go find out if there is a war going on in Ambazonia. And it's over for these people, man. They are so ridiculous in their thinking. It's over, man. The frustration is overwhelmingly ridiculous, man. It's overwhelmingly ridiculous. Even the enablers cannot help them anymore.
We have had cases of the ex-combatant being some of the mother of those kids that they hire to play ex-combatant being frustrated on our streets, and the picture is out. And if we may go to the diplomatic segment, I think
that's what Ambazonians are waiting for right now. They are all waiting for. Seriously, when are you going to talk about what Tibo said, and when are you going to talk about diplomacy?
So a tweet for a start. Why Charles Taku, who is from Ambazonian origin, have tweeted that the United Nations have just confirmed what had already been in the corridors of diplomacy in terms of the African Union, the Americans, the European Union, and the United Nations Organization are all calling for negotiation. Where are we heading on that side?
Well, you must be aware that from the onset, we have shown our willingness in the past 30 years to negotiate, to find a way to negotiate. The Tassangs did that even in terms of reforming the colonial state. We dispatched late Pamuna and Foncha and the others, Panjoli Tumbe, to the United Nations to call the attention of the UN of a botched decolonization process on black colonialism. On the side of these, dispose ourselves to some form of meaningful discussion on the issues, even if it does not involve initially the core issue of Cameroon's departure and compensation. We have had discussions with the United Nations. I'll put it to that. And our position that we relate to the Swiss government remains the same. The Amazonian people have faced close to 60 years of international silence, or most actively international conspiracy on the issue of sovereignty of our country. Every letter dispatched to Downing Street has returned with a response that the British recognize Cameroon as one state and their duty as a midwife under the trusteeship system was properly fulfilled. Every time they've tried to describe us as a geographic region of Cameroon, undermining the aspect of self-determination and the fact that we were the first country to have really gained self-government and a democratic plurality. So all of these narratives and rhetorics has been to hide behind, an historical fallacy about, the effect of the creation of new states. We have made it absolutely clear to the United Nations that their involvement will be welcome, either through the appointment of a special envoy or the passing of a UN General Assembly resolution mandating any state, groups of states, to mediate between Ambazonia and Cameroon, and its preparedness to oversee the implementation of any agreement between us and Cameroon. We have had this communication in close circle. It will remain classified. The details of it will be communicated in the future. With respect to the statement of the United Nations in the past days, we have responded to that statement today. And the Secretary of State, the Secretary for International Peace and Recognition, the Vice President, the Secretary General, they have worked on the draft, and it should be going to the United Nations. The Ambazonian Governing Council welcomes their preparedness to mediate, but we have also urged them to move from rhetoric to particular action, and to note that there are core principles at the level of the international system that gives the United Nations the possibility of action using a Chapter 7 mandate of the UN Charter. One, there is genocide going in Ambazonia, and the cloak of sovereignty cannot be allowed to deny the international system in some form of intervention. A country loses the ability to invoke the cloak of sovereignty to deny external action only when it has the ability or willingness to deal with situations that can create international humanitarian disaster, and that is causing genocide. Cameroon has proven itself as incapable, unwilling, and willing to commit genocide. So we have provided the instruments under the Charter for the UN to take action. Secondly, we have also reminded the United Nations that relevant international humanitarian laws and human rights laws are things that Cameroon has signed up to. Under these laws, there are mechanisms under enforcement regimes to hold regimes accountable. For example, a country that practices systematic torture, there is universal jurisdiction in terms of where action can be taken. And so Cameroon cannot say to itself that, with this action that it is taking, only it has jurisdiction, to prosecute. So Cameroon has been practicing systematic torture in Ambazonia for a long time. But to round this up, I will be holding special meetings in the coming days to get our team prepared on the issues. Because what I can assure you is that the time is coming, and very soon. Cameroon will not escape. Its actions in the past days, and I think the PS has alluded to it, there has been a loss of command and control. Biya is not in charge. Biya is no longer in charge. There is friction within the Cameroon regime in terms of the hardliners who profit from the war and the moderates who think there should be some form of understanding to stop the drainage in terms of the Cameroon's treasury and in terms of the pressure from the international system. This split, this rancor, this tension within Cameroon is sending a message to the international system. If they don't step in, this tension and rancor might translate into a regime collapse. And they will not only be facing the Amazonian crisis, they will be facing a Cameroon crisis in their hands. And it will be very, very difficult to stop. With a semblance of a little bit of coercion, the possibility of the United Nations taking a bold step will assure the moderates within Cameroon that there can be a solution, they can rally behind that, and there can be a negotiated settlement that will lead Cameroon to move out of our country and then pay compensation for the crimes he has committed, for the impunity for over 60 years of occupation.
DDC, you have a follow-up question, or you want me to have a follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sir, are these conversations going to be made public, or these are things that are going to remain classified in terms of confidence building for the Ambazonian people?
You see, I have had a lot of discussions during this liberation struggle. One of the biggest mistakes that happened in Kondengi, in the supposed discussion between Seseko and La République, is its publicity. In the conflict between FARC and the Colombian government, sometimes there are secret channels of communication that exist for 10 years, which are confidence building measures. I've had a lot of conversation. The Ambazonian Governing Council has had a lot of high-profile meetings, which have remained classified, and they will remain classified because the international system does not consider us at this particular stage as a legitimate state actor. And so if they want to build confidence in communication that will not anger Cameroon and delay the prospect of it coming onto the table, some of those discussions, however PR good they may be for the Ambazonian Governing Council and my leadership, must for the interest of ending Cameroon's presence remain classified. At the appropriate moment, we will be able to put them out. But be rest assured, we are a responsible party when we engage in these discussions. We abide to NDAs, what we call non-disclosure agreements, but we also have a duty to inform and educate our people at a certain superficial level for them to know that these things have been going on. The person we speak with, the issues we discuss will remain classified, but be rest assured, as we said, we are an international contender, a party to the conflict, party that is taken seriously because of our mastery of the issues. We have educated the international system. There are certain instruments they don't know. Our experts have educated them. We've intervention without undermining supposed Cameroon sovereignty. We are giving comparative analysis in terms of education on what happened in different conflicts. I give you an example. The invoke his right under the statutes of the ICC in the post-election violence in Ivory Coast. It invoked that right in the post-election violence in Kenya to look into the systematic violence that was deemed enough to have violated the charter. I can assure you the reason for which they invoked that right was, one, to bring pressure to bear on the parties. Secondly, to arrest the situation from spiraling out of control. Because the moment the international system shows its willingness to investigate, it puts pressure on the regime. Personal accountability is taken into consideration in both cases. And I'll present that when I present my case for genocide. In both the case of Kenya and the case of Ivory, they had not even reached 1/10 of the situation that Ambazonia finds itself in terms of impunity, in terms of displacement, in terms of the arrogance of the regime and its willingness to continue to prosecute the war with such level of violence. We have presented these arguments to these partners to understand the disparity and what can happen. We have educated them on what the United Nations did. For example, in the case of Burkina Faso, he appointed a special envoy in a crisis that had not attained the level of tension as the Ambazonian case. So we cannot sit back and say we cannot appoint a special envoy. We rejected the notion of his blanket rhetorical support for the peace process without instrumentalizing that rhetorical support in either a UN resolution or the appointment of a special envoy. The day Ambazonians read the United Nations comes forward and say we've appointed a special envoy, the day they are willing to take up the matter in terms of passing a UN resolution, you know they have gotten started. For now it's rhetoric, but the rhetoric is going in a good direction because it is changing in terms of narrative, it's changing in terms of perspective. And the situation on the ground is escalating in a way that they know the attitudes of Cameroon must be brought, must be arrested.
All right, I know that we're coming to the end of this broadcast. Let's ask you an important question. How should the Ambazonian people match these positive steps in terms of the successes of your leadership in terms of diplomacy, international engagement, directly with your leadership. How should we match this with the defense of the behavior of the forces on the ground, their operations on the ground, and the engagement of our people?
The first thing that you should not do, I'll first say what you should not do.
Okay.
Don't be excited. Don't translate this into arrogance. Maintain a high sense of humility. Continue your education in the way that I have always advised. The briefings you've done, the education in terms of the strategy. Take note, each time you see the positive signs, that is the moment you get more infiltrations. That is the moment all the sleeping dogs think that the end is near and they'll all jump on the table. That is the moment all sort of groups will emerge. They want to be on the table. I think the Swiss issue should teach you the amount of groups that were created, the amount of things that happened, and what destroyed it also was arrogance. One of the things the Ambazonian Government Council should never do is demonstrate public arrogance, because you have more to lose in times of failure than the others. If the revolution, the liberation struggle fails, you will be held more accountable than others. That's what you should not do. Secondly, this is what you should do. In terms of those who communicate for Ambazonia. This is a victory for Ambazonia. The AGOVC as an instrument in this victory will always remain relevant in your discourses. Once Ambazonians feel that this is a collective win for them, you will have the support in the most difficult times that you need. Pushing Cameroon, fighting Cameroon is the easy part. The period of discussion, that is when spoiler effect takes root. From both sides, the spoilers will emerge to sabotage, because some have sworn if this victory has to be brought by you, we will rather remain under Cameroon. Some have sworn in Cameroon than for Ambazonia to become free will be a humiliation that comes with it, the uncertainty. We should do everything to stop it. So you must communicate in a way that gives assurances to our people that is a collective win for all of them. You must communicate in such a way that even gives the Cameroonian the possibility that the existence of an Ambazonian state will be good for the individual citizens of Cameroon in terms of stability, in terms of opportunity. But make no mistake, anytime the international system makes the first move, focus on the ground. The power of diplomacy flows from the barrel of the gun. It's not from loud sounding speeches that we make here. They defeat you on the ground, your diplomats become useless as toiletries. Don't take your eyes off the ball. Your power to negotiate an outcome befitting to those who laid their lives and those locked up in jail and those still fighting will be reflected in your ability to have the force necessary to defeat the enemy, if need be, without negotiation, to maintain the tranquility within the homeland, to assure the international system of your ability to guarantee stability. Each time there is positive move at the international level, warn our people against unnecessary premature excitement, warn our soldiers who during the Swiss talk, some of them started planning, talking about forming their own teams. No. Warn against premature excitement that translates into derailing the struggle, derailing the focus, creating competing multiple centers of power that demonstrate a sense of chaos. This is crucial for you people, communicators. It is crucial for us leaders, but you should know we will communicate this in a measured manner that shows our people that there is still work left to be done.
As we are rounding up I want to pick up some comment from the comment section from one gentleman, Emmanuel Com Abeng. He said, join civilian and military partnership in the current context. What is the risk involved for civilians with this strategy?
I explained that. I think he's right. That's why I said we move cautiously. But let Comrade Abeng take note of this. We are afraid of nothing. Yeah, we are afraid of virtually nothing. The population that has been threatened, who owns stores in Meme, in Boya, they have defied the pressure of the occupier. The occupier has broken locks, locked them up, broken into store. They have defied them. Power has changed hands. On the 1st of October 2019, thousands of our civilian population marched with our soldiers. When the military regime was called by infiltrators into Kugwe, they came, they could not withstand it. We have shown how we are back in control with the same population. We are in charge. We don't just have the bravery to assert it. And that's one of the greatest weaknesses of we are. The risk to the civilian population is minimal. The risk to the civilian population is minimal. We are not also in the position to expose those joint structures. You will see their work through their operations. But you should take note that part of our civilian population is working with our soldiers on a daily basis. The military knows it, and that works in our favor. I know it might sound a bit careless, but in the act of liberation, there are certain decisions that you make that might come across as imperiling the security of our people. But those are the necessary decisions that you have to take if you want to have control of your homeland. It's like a cancerous patient. Chemotherapy has the likelihood of killing the patient, but it also has the likelihood of being the magic bullet that treats the patient. You have to do the balancing, and the balancing has come to me as setting up this joint stuff will stop the kidnapping, will stop sometimes the chaos, will stop sometimes the infiltration, will give a sense of ownership in the population and the defense forces.
DDC, check the question comment section again if there is any other question for the for the CIC.
I think so far, Mr. Emmanuel Abeng, have been a gentleman. As you know very well, with our revolution, you have a whole set of people in Yaoundé with their hired firms to make sure that the comment section is as messy as possible. But so far, I think we have shown some respect to the gentleman there. If I was to ask something in just closing, I will still want to ask Dr. Cho. I know the egg of sea guys with their politics, these bureaucrats, they don't want us to push the thing on the TV in public, but sir, please, we really want you to put some hand in this thing and let us have that TV station. We need, I think, an intervention. With the communicators, we have been there waiting for more than 1 month now, and I cannot believe things cannot be this fast. And I hope that the president will step in or even try to see if we can check in what is going on there. We need that TV station up and running. Ground Zero is asking.
I think there is a question about what do you have to say about La Republique trying to tag the ADF as a terrorist organization, as a terrorist force?
First, La Republique are tagging itself as a terrorist, the Ambazonian Defense Forces does not engage either in terms of policy, in terms of practice, and actions that reach even the minimum form of the definition of terrorism. Normally, terrorism will be defined as taking actions that impose high risk of bodily harm, injuries, and actions that threatens the population to exact political gains. Cameroonians are living in Ambazonia, and Nigerians are living in Ambazonia. We have focused our actions on the military. There have been some, unfortunate incidences of civilian death, but we have shown to the world that we are focused on our liberation. And in terms of leadership, the leadership has been very clear. The leadership has been clear on how we must conduct ourselves in terms of respect for human life, human dignity, protection of people. We don't engage in blanket actions. Even when the DDC goes out and talks about things that under normal circumstances people don't talk about. He talks about deployment of IEDs. He advises days ahead that the civilian population should not get to military installations, the civilian population to avoid certain places because we might be using certain materials that might have collateral impact. Now, compare the actions of our defense forces and the actions of Yaoundé, and then you can now tell me who should be immediately tagged as a terrorist regime. 600 villages burned, thousands of our people killed, torture as a policy position, a shooting of already dead soldiers, decapitation, burning of old women in the house, arresting 700 civilian population and detaining them, raping women, terrorizing our population to force the surrender of our soldiers. All of these things are they fit the classical definition of terrorism. Ambazonians should never be afraid. As long as I am in leadership position, our actions shall never degenerate to the position where we even come close to be tagged as terrorists. Any action we take, we weigh it very well. We examine its ramifications. We look at it within the context of customary practice and international treaty laws. So you should be confident in the leaders you have. You should be confident in the fact that both of you sitting here, our general leadership has condemned certain actions that we feel undermine the spirit of our liberation struggle and pushes us closer to the actions of Cameroon.
Did you see any other?
I think we'll be running up, but it will be unfair to leave Mr. Emmanuel Mbeng. The gentleman is quite one of a kind. I think let me just read out this question that he has asked. He said, "We have seen so many videos of atrocities like the beheadings. How does one distinguish ADF forces from the other who commit these blatant abuses?" That will be my last question, PS.
You see, I want to speak for all the forces. I always like to speak for all the forces. I can distinguish. The facts are there, Comrade Beng or Abeng. The facts are out there for the jury, which forces undertake certain actions. The facts are there, and you have the facts. They have been presented to you. I call on all Ambazonian forces to respect the law and to take actions that are consistent with their code of conduct, irrespective under which group you fight. The law is universal, and you should act in recognition of that absolute necessity to work in a way that does not imperil the outcome that you're fighting for. And as I have said, the code of justice will hold anyone accountable, whether ADF or whosoever, that deliberately causes an infraction of the law. That's what I can say.
All right, sir.
All right.
DDC. I think it's time for the CIC to wrap this up for us. We've been here for 2 hours, exactly 2 hours. Do you have another question for him, or you can make his closing remarks or statement, or do you have something to say before about what your boys are, about what
I think
the boys are doing in in
I
the
think we have my bosses here. The TIC is there, and I think that we are done. In terms of time, I think time wise, we'll have this conversation later on.
All right.
And thank you very much, PS. You're always a national coach, you know.
Before we go
Thank
to
you
the
very much, sir. And
before
thank
we
you, CIC, also for taking this time to come with us, and our PS also, who is PR, who have done a marvelous job to set this platform up. He has been doing a tremendous job. He's a medical doctor in the United States. He has volunteered a lot of his time helping in the background to shape what we do in the ADF as well in the Egg of Sea and on this platform and YouTube stuff. He has also been helping me. I have if I could say something, even though I said I didn't want to say, my office is really big. I have a lot of staff. I think I have close to 8 staff who are working beside me. And the Egg of Sea, I want people to understand that the ADF, as well as the Egg of Sea, we have tremendous team working together. What you guys see out there is just finished product. And we have a leader that has really been motivational. It's very, very tough in Africa. We have these things in corporate wars here. But to see them in our struggle in our country, people should hope for a democratic and a society where it's law and order. Thank you very much, sir.
DDC, let me also compliment you while you are here. I know that you don't like these things in public. I want to thank you for what you do for our people. Your level of investigations, your analysis, your education. You've played an instrumental role in reshaping the thinking system of our people, the ability to believe in themselves. Your role in the ADF leadership, you've actually restructured the war in the Savannah state. You've taken it to a whole complete different level. Your level of engagement on a daily basis with the commanders and the general, the effectiveness of your work ethics, it's something that the people that we are truly blessed to have you. So thank you so much. It's 2, I think it's 2 a.m. in Hong Kong right now. So it's you're almost going to work very soon. So thank you for the sacrifices and thank you for the services you render to the Ambazonian people. Sir, you have closing remarks for our people, sir.
Thanks a lot to both of you, gentlemen. You guys are gentlemen, and Ambazonians are blessed to have both of you and the rest of the team in communication, the PR and the others, for the tremendous work that you are doing. I want to thank our people for their sacrifices, their steadfastness, and you have taken your desire for freedom to a different level. And be rest assured that you are going to prevail over the beast from the east. Never, as I wrote today, never has any generation been able to go through such torments and such sacrifices and live to tell your story. And I think you will live to tell your story, the story of brave men and women who get up every day and sacrifice to defend our blocks and neighborhoods, our general population, for respecting country Sundays and Mondays as a kind of collective defiance against Yaoundé. I know sometimes you feel like we've let you down. We are running a very difficult liberation struggle, being the primary investors in our own freedom in order to own the outcome and prevent the kind of post-independence chaos that usually visit other countries. So you must bear with us the limitations. You must also understand we've come under a colonial system where bribery, corruption has been the hallmark of that system. That system is still part of us. And we must understand and be patient with the policies we put in place. Ambazonia is free. We are working extremely very hard to celebrate our Independence Day on the 1st of October. And I know that every one of you, wherever you may be, will have a flag, will sing the anthem, will rejoice, take ownership of your homeland, humiliate the enemy. And I appeal to all of you to continuously work with our forces on the ground, provide them the support that you have always provided them, be their first line of intelligence, and I call on our forces to respect our civilian population. They must know the only reason for which we fight is to provide for that population an opportunity to live in a country free of terror. We cannot and should not be seen as the ones that impose that terror on them. I understand the difficulties fighting for more than 3.5 years without salary, without a day of rest, without regular food, without the thank you that you deserve. But you must know that the thank you will not come to the history records every word you utter, every action you take. And Ambazonia today in the next generation will never forget what you've done here today. To our soldiers, our prisoners of war, on a daily basis for us out here with temporal freedom, we are working extremely very hard to make sure we shorten the days that you stay in the dungeons of the enemy. That you may one day, in the shortest time possible, walk back into your own country, look across the border, and imagine how much you've left behind. To all of you out here in the diaspora who continue to sacrifice, those of you that may differ with the policies we put in place, may differ with the actions that we put in place, I want to reassure you, we will listen, we will reshape policies to conform with your aspirations, but you must trust in us. You must trust in us because in the last 3.5 years, everything we have said, everything we have done, have moved us further away from La Republic, brought us closer to the reality of an independent, sovereign Ambazonia within which power will rest in the hands of our people. Thank you very much and God bless Ambazonia.
Thank you very much, the leader of our War of Independence, Dr. Ayaba Cho, and thank you very much, DDC of the Savannah State, Comrade Capo Daniel, Ambazonia. Have a blessed day.